Hey everyone, welcome back to our New Testament challenge. Today we're in Mark chapter 8. And here Jesus is doing a lot of teaching. We start out this chapter by we see Jesus feeding the 4,000, not the 5,000. There are two different accounts. Something interesting is, all four gospels have Jesus feeding the 5,000 in them, but Matthew and Mark are the only two that have feeding the 4,000 in the gospels. Just some fun Bible knowledge there for you. And so Jesus goes through and he's rebuking the Pharisees, he's rebuking the disciples, he's doing lots of teaching, he's healing a man. But today, where I really want us to focus in on is verses 27 through 33. I'm going to read it for us. It says, Jesus went out along with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he questioned his disciples, saying to them, "Who do people say that I am?" They told him, saying, "John the Baptist," and others saying Elijah, but others, one of the prophets. And he continued by questioning them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered and said to him, "You are the Christ." And he warned them to tell no one about him. And he began to teach them about the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he was stating the matter plainly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning around and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but man's." So there we see Jesus uses some harsh words with Peter there. He's saying, "Get behind me, Satan." And I know some of you may be thinking, like, David, why did he say that? Why was that the phrasing that Jesus used there? Well, let's look at this. So here, he's talking about who he is, and then he's predicting his death. And so Peter cannot grasp his mind around the thought that the Messiah was coming to die. That was beyond Peter's mind. Peter, I can't see into Peter's mind. So, he may have been thinking, well, the Messiah is supposed to be a king coming, and he's going to triumphantly lead us. That may be where his thought is, but his mind was not wrapped around the fact that Messiah was to come and to die and what Jesus came to do. But his mind was wrapped around his own self, what he thought, what human thought was in Peter's best interest, not actually what Jesus came to do. And, Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's." God had a totally different plan for the Messiah of the world, the King, to come than what we humans decided or what we thought the Messiah was to come and to do. Those two plans were totally different, and Peter could not grasp his mind around God's plan for what the Messiah was to come and to do. And so here, what we can take away from this passage of Scripture is you and I often can be caught up in the thought in our mind of being, in our own plan, what our own hearts desire. But yet we cannot grasp our mind on what God's plan, what God has for us. And we should, in fact, set our minds on what God's interests for us are, and not, in fact, on what man's interests are. Because we've read all throughout, this New Testament so far that man's interest is only going to lead to death, decay, and destruction, whereas God's interest is going to lead to life. And so as you walk through your day, as you walk through this life, set your mind on the interests of God, because the interests of God are going to be far greater than what you, a human, can grasp here in our human minds, in our finite minds. So I hope you have a great rest of your day.